Here we'll continue with the question number 2. Due to some technical error, we are forced to do with separately the question number 1. Here we are having the solution for question number 2, day 13 quiz. Determine the mass fraction and volume fraction of phases present in alloy at Pb and Sn. Pb is nothing but plumbum. It is a Latin name for lead, and Sn is called stannum, and it is a Latin name for tin. With 40% Sn at 100 degrees centigrade. Okay, we'll discuss what exactly is 40% Sn at 100 degrees centigrade. At this temperature, 10% of Sn can be dissolved in Pb and 2% of Pb can be dissolved in Sn. The density of Pb and Sn at this temperature are 11.23 and 7.22 gram per cc respectively. Right. So first, what is a PbSn mixture called? This PbSn mixture is an example for partial eutectic systems. We'll see what is partial eutectic systems. Generally, eutectic system is partial eutectic system. We'll call a system as eutectic when it is having a complete solubility in both solid and liquid phases. Suppose we are taking two metals, metal A and metal B. We started heating them. So after reaching the melting points of both the metals, they start melting, and finally above the melting point of both the metals, they will be in the liquid form, totally liquid form, right? And they are completely soluble in the liquid form. And whenever we start cooling, right, whenever we remove heating and we start cooling, they will be tending towards the solid. They will be losing energy, and the intermolecular energy reduces, and they start forming solids. When they are forming solids, if the both mixtures, suppose we take a unit part of that and we analyze it, if the both mixtures are having the same percentage in them, then it is said that they are completely soluble in solid also. So, and those type of mixture where they are completely soluble in liquid and completely soluble in liquid and solid are called as eutectic systems. Here, if you can observe, Pb and Sn is an example of partial eutectic. What exactly is partial eutectic? Is completely soluble in liquid, completely soluble in liquid, and partially soluble in solid. So when it is partially soluble in solid, there will be two other phases being produced when we analyze them. And one will be in the Pb phase, that is the partial solubility of Sn in Pb, and the other will be the Sn phase, that is the partial solubility of Pb in Sn. So they are called as alpha and the other is beta. And alpha is nothing but the solid solution of Sn in Pb. When we analyze Pb, what solution of Sn it is having in Pb, and the other is solid solution of Pb in Sn, right? So generally in the question it is said 100 degrees centigrade. This is our reference temperature now for this question. This is our reference temperature, and at eutectic, generally when it is eutectic, that is it is at a point of wedge of forming the liquid, complete liquid, both the metals forming liquid. It is called as an eutectic point, and at that eutectic point the temperature will be something different. But for our given question, this is our condition where 100 degrees centigrade, and at 100 degrees centigrade when they analyze the mixture, solid solution mixture, they found that the mixture is having 40% of Sn and 60% of Pb in solid phase. If it is 40% of Sn, then obviously it will be 60% of Pb in solid phase, right? So we'll just see, this is our, then this 100 degrees centigrade we are taking as our reference point, or generally these points are called as fulcrum, because we will be using Lever's rule. Lever will be having a fulcrum. This is called the fulcrum point, or a fixed or a point for the given reference. And we'll see how to draw the diagram for this phase equilibrium diagram of partial eutectic system. This is also called as binary phase system of type 2. Binary mean we are having two solid solutions, we are forming two solid solutions, nothing but of the two phases. One is for Sn and solid solution of Pb, and other will be the Pb and the solid solution of Sn. That will, all these equilibrium diagrams we'll be discussing in the concept series. For the time limit, we are only doing with this question. Here is our equilibrium diagram. How to draw the equilibrium diagram? See, generally this vertical things we are having, they are the temperature axis. One will be the temperature for say lead, and other will be the temperature for tin. Here we are having a tin end. So here, first of all, when you are giving this question, we need to draw this diagram. Once initially, if you draw this diagram for 2 to 3 times, from the next while solving this type of question, just the lever diagram is enough. This is called the lever diagram, and this is goes the phase equilibrium diagram. Phase equilibrium diagram. So we'll see first for this question how we'll draw the phase equilibrium diagram. At the complete extreme most left, it is the 100% PB. There is no SN at all. If there is no SN, then it is called as 0% SN. And the complete right side, it is 100% SN. We'll be seeing how the mixture will vary, right? And if it is 100% SN, then it will be 100% PB. 0% PB. And we are having this line which differentiates between the liquid phase and the solid phase. Okay, and above this line there will be the liquid phase. We'll represent the phases with some other color. This is the liquid phase, and here we'll finish the diagram. First of all, this is not a isomorphous system or the binary phase of type 1 where there is complete solubility in liquid and complete solubility in solid. So for us what will happen is here we will get an extra lines here just to understand the diagram here, right? It will be more somewhere here. Eutectic point will be somewhere here. Okay, this is our phase diagram. Generally it is formed. This is a liquid phase, and here this is the PB side. So PB side, it is nothing but, in the question it is given on the solid solution of SN in PB. So here all whatever we measure in the left hand direction is the SN in PB. So PB is the major constituent, and we'll be measuring what percent of SN is present in that. So if PB is a major content, this is called the alpha. That is the solid phase of PB and alpha when it is decreased. And generally when we are talking about this right side, we are having 100% PB, then this is the melting point for PB, and generally it is 327 degrees centigrade. We know both lead and tin are the metals of lowest melting points, and here we are having the tin, and generally it will be having a melting point of 232 degrees centigrade. And this is our eutectic point, right? When this is alpha, this phase is the liquid plus alpha, that is L plus alpha, and this is L plus beta, and this is our beta phase. And here below this line, it will be the total mixture solid solution of alpha plus beta. Okay, and for us in our question, they gave a condition, that is a 40% of SN. So if this is 0% SN, somewhere here we will be having our 40% SN. Okay, since they gave what SN is our reference, so on the fulcrum point also we will write the 40% SN here. Since in our question for SN, tin they have taken as a reference, we are measuring the tin, so the fulcrum will be having 40% SN. So what we'll do is we will extend a line here and just leave here, and now we'll read the remaining part of question. At this temperature, 10% of SN can be dissolved in PB. And they said that at this temperature, 10% of SN can be dissolved in PB. Nothing but the point over here. 10% of SN. If this is a 0% SN, and here somewhere around here, we will be having the 10% SN. See, since here we given 10% SN, and our reference is for tin, here on the fulcrum extreme end, we will write the 10% SN. Okay, and also in the question it is given, and 2% of PB can be dissolved in SN. So when we are analyzing the SN, it is said that 2% of that PB can be dissolved. If this is 0% PB, so somewhere very close to here we will be having 2% PB. If it is 2% PB, since we are taking our SN as our reference, it will be 98% SN. Right. So we will elongate these lines, these points. This will be touching this curve somewhere here, and this will be touching somewhere around here. And once we draw a line about this to understand these points, okay, we've got the 3 points. One is our fulcrum point F, and other is the side of alpha, and other is the side of beta, right? So this side we are having alpha and this side we are having beta. And also in the question, this point on the fulcrum point, here we are having, since Sn is our reference, here we are having 98% Sn. Okay, this is our how we draw the phase diagram, and we will see, since we are taking Sn as reference, first we will see the by applying Liver's rule we will calculate the mass, and from that, using the densities, we will calculate the volume. So initially, to see here, we will apply Liver's rule here. By Liver's rule, when we have to calculate the mass along the along the alpha, then you need to take the distance. This is called as some distance. Let this point be some f, and let this point be a, and let this point be b. When we have to calculate alpha on the left hand side, you need to take the distance between fb upon the total distance. That is the Liver's rule. Generally, this is the Liver's rule we know. When we are having a fulcrum point, if you are having a load on one direction, you have to calculate the load on other direction, then you will be taking the distance between the opposite load upon the total distance. So the same here, Liver's rule will be applying here. It is nothing but fb upon ab. Okay, and here the fb is nothing but 98% of tin minus 40% of tin upon AB is nothing but 98% of tin minus 10% of this, and this is the mass fraction. Then we will be getting it as 65.9%, close to 65.9%. Similarly we can take MB and we can calculate AF upon AB, but instead we can do in this way. We know mass fraction of A plus mass fraction of B is equal to 1. So mass fraction of B can be written as 100 minus of mass fraction at alpha, nothing but at A. This comes out to be 100 minus 65.9, and that comes out to be 34.1. These were our two answers for the mass fraction asked in the question. Okay, and next we need to calculate the volume fraction. For that we should know generally volume is equal to, since density is equal to mass upon volume, volume is equal to mass upon density. So nothing but if you have to calculate the volume fraction of alpha, you need the mass fraction of alpha upon the density of alpha. So for that, first we will calculate the density of alpha. For calculating the density of alpha, at alpha means nothing but a solid solution of lead and tin, right? Alpha is the solid solution of tin in lead. Beta is the solid solution of lead in tin, right? So to calculate the solid solution of alpha, we will be using this equation, like 100 upon rho of alpha, nothing but density of alpha is equal to, at alpha, nothing but at the given point we are having 10% of Sn. So 10% upon the density of Sn will be taken here, plus if it's a 10% Sn, then it will be 90% lead. So 90% of lead. Okay, and similarly from here we will take the rho beta. Same for rho beta we can take, but here we can't apply 100 minus rho beta or 1 minus rho beta, because density fraction is not equal to 1. And say 100 upon rho b is equal to, at b, when we are taking the beta condition, nothing but towards the right end, it is given that 2% of Pb is in 98% of Sn at that given 100 degrees centigrade. So nothing but, this is all at 100 degrees centigrade, whatever we are calculating, rho alpha, rho beta. As temperature changes, this density also keeps on changing. Even the mass fraction also will keeps on changing, right? This is at 100 degrees centigrade. All the things parameters we are calculating is at 100 degrees centigrade. So here 100 upon rho beta is equal to, since here we are having 2% of Pb, so it is 2 by rho of Pb plus 98 upon rho of Sn. And in the question, rho of Pb and rho of Sn were given 11.23 and 7.22. We will substitute them here, and from here we will be getting the value of rho alpha and then the value of rho beta. Okay, and for the value of rho alpha we are getting it as rho alpha we are getting it as 10.64 gram per cc, and similarly the rho beta value we are getting it as 7.29 gram per cc. Once the densities were known, we will calculate the volume fractions. So volume of alpha, we will calculate the volume fraction. Volume of alpha is equal to, just now we discussed volume fraction. Volume is nothing but mass upon density, right? So volume fraction of alpha is nothing but mass of alpha. Since we are calculating volume fraction here, it is nothing but initially We are calculating volume fraction, right? For volume fraction, it is volume of alpha upon volume of alpha plus beta. And volume fraction of beta can be calculated like total volume, or we can take it as 1 minus of volume of alpha. And generally volume of alpha is nothing but mass of alpha upon the density of alpha by mass of alpha upon density of alpha plus mass of beta upon density of beta, right? And mass of alpha we have calculated 65.9%, nothing but 0.659, and rho alpha we have calculated 10.64. Similarly, mass of beta we have calculated 0.341, and the density of beta we calculated 7.29. By substituting all those values, we will be getting volume fraction of alpha as 0.57, nothing but 57%. And similarly, this is 1 minus 0.57, and this is 43% in taking it in percentage. And these were the answers. These are the answers for volume fraction. So in this way, we will be solving the equilibrium diagram questions. We've taken it a too long time just to explain each and every term what it is and how we'll take the levers and everything. Here is our question number 3. From here we'll be very fast. A BCC crystal used to measure the wavelength of some X-rays. So it's okay. Generally for X-rays we can make two things. We can measure the wavelength of X-rays from the known crystal dimensions, or else if the crystal dimensions are unknown, with the known wavelength of X-rays we can calculate the crystal parameters. Understood? So this technique is called as X-ray diffraction technique. Here we will be making a diffraction method here. That all you can study from some theory book. It will be very useful there. There is something called as constructive interference and destructive interference. You can just go through the diffraction technique. Generally this is done by Bragg's law, and there will be some parameters like Bragg's parameters, Bragg's angle, okay, and Bragg's wavelength and etc. So you refer some standard textbook from there, but here in this question I will just take the output of Bragg's rule and we'll solve this question. So BCC crystal used to measure the wavelength of some X-rays. The Bragg angle for the reflection of 100 plane. We already discussed the 100 plane in our previous case of BCC. In our first question, you can look over there about the 110 plane. Here also will take, and the given angle is theta is equal to 20.2 degrees. What is the wavelength when the lattice parameter of the crystal? Generally for the crystal the lattice parameter is denoted by A, and it is given as 3.15 angstrom units. You know angstrom unit is equal to 10 power minus 10 meters. In that way you can take all the calculation. Theta was given in the question, and A was given, and also the plane was given as 110. And generally for this from X-ray diffraction technique and also Bragg's law, the Bragg's law output is for constructive interference the path length is given by n lambda, and for destructive it is n by 2 lambda. That all you can get from some standard textbook. Here for constructive interference the path length is n lambda, and that is obtained to be, there is a derivation even for this 2d sin theta. You can refer some good textbook, you can understand the X-ray diffraction. It is not too much important. You need to know at least this Bragg's law. So n lambda is equal to 2d sin theta. Okay, here the lambda is the wavelength of the X-ray being used, n is the number of cycles or number of reflections it have taken, n is the number of reflections it have taken, and the d is called as interplanar distance. While studying Miller indices we will study this interplanar distance. D is the interplanar distance, and it is given by d is equal to the squares of lattice parameters, h square plus k square. It is d is equal to lattice parameter a upon under root of h square plus k square plus l square. Okay, this is the length of lattice parameter, or the direct distance between the plane given and the origin or the reference, and a is the lattice parameter. Okay, so in our question for D110 we'll directly calculate here. 110 nothing but h is equal to 1, k is equal to 1, l is equal to 0. So a is given in the question as 3.15 angstrom units upon h square 1 square plus k square 1 square plus 0 square, and this comes out to be d is equal to 3.15 upon root 2 and the units are angstrom. Okay, this is d we have calculated. Sin theta was given in the question, the Bragg angle. We need to calculate the wavelength here. So for here I've left space for drawing the 110 plane. This is already discussed there. You can watch over there. For n is equal to 1, nothing but for the first order or the first order reflection or the reflection for one time, n is equal to 1, lambda is nothing but 2d sin theta. We need to calculate the value of lambda. Lambda is equal to 2 into d, just now we calculated 3.15 upon root 2 angstroms, into sine of the angle was given in the question as 20.2 degrees. Okay, from this we are getting our lambda value as 1.538 angstroms. Okay, there generally when we are studying Bragg's law, there will be a ray passing in this way. We'll see here. So there will be a ray passing in this way and it will be reflected after passing through the crystal structure. And similarly, there will be another parallel ray. Again, it will be reflected in the same some angle, and that angle is called as the incidence angle or the Bragg's angle. Okay, this angle is called as the incidence angle or the Bragg's angle. Right. And this is the incident angle and Bragg's angle, and the distance between these 2 points is taken as d. Okay, in this derivation we'll be getting the path difference. This is the path traveled once the wave has entered and again it has left, and this is d sin theta and this is d sin theta. From this only we got that n lambda for one reflection, n lambda is equal to the distance traveled, the path length is 2d sin theta. This is a small derivation you can observe from there. And here is our question number 4. For some metal alloy, the true stress was given as 345 megapascal, produces a plastic strain of 0.002, and it is also a true strain 0.002. How much will specimen of this material elongate when a true stress of 415 megapascal is applied? If the original length of the specimen is 500 mm, assume the value of 0.22 for the strain hardening exponent n. So this is given by true strain relation, true strain versus true stress relation. These are true stress and engineering stress we will be discussing in concept series. You can watch some book, textbook, etc. First of all, in the given question, the true stress for a condition 1 was given as 345 megapascals, and there at this true stress they measured the strain from the stress strain curve and they found out to be 0.02. Similarly, they were saying that at the true stress of 415 megapascal, what will be the elongation? For calculating elongation, you need the true stress. So we will be calculating true stress. From this, we will be calculating the elongation. So we need to calculate finally the elongation. For this, we need to use the relation between true stress and strain, and that is given by true stress is equal to K times, K is our constant of this proportionality, K times true stress whole power n. N is our strain hardening exponent. So how the strain will be increasing? Nothing but the strain hardening means strain increasing. So n is the strain hardening exponent. And in our first condition, it was given 345 megapascals is equal to the value of K is unknown, and the strain is given as 0.02 and whole power 0.22. From this relation, we'll be getting our value of K, and this comes out to be 816 megapascals. That's the proportionality constant we've got. Next condition is at 415 megapascals, and the K value is known, 816 megapascals. Into the true stress here we'll be calculating, true strain here we'll be calculating, right. The true strength came out to be 0.0463, and we know generally engineering strain whatever we take, it is nothing but delta L upon L, nothing but L final minus L initial upon L initial. And also in the question, L initial was given as 500 mm, nothing but the original length. Okay, but the true strain, the relation is natural logarithmic of L final upon L original. There is also a derivation for this. It is not that important here now. So we need to, here true strain was obtained. From this we need to calculate the L final. So engineering true strain is equal to logarithm of L final upon L original or the L initial, that is equal to 0.0463. Applying antilog on both sides, then it comes out to be e power 0.0463, and that value is 1.0473. So the value of LF finally will be getting it as 523.7 mm. L original was given in the question 500 mm, and we need to calculate the elongation. The elongation was asked at that stress. So the elongation here, delta L, comes out to be 523.7 minus the original length is 500 mm, and the elongation comes out to be 23.7 mm. That is our answer. And here comes our next question, the final question. Find the theoretical density of a crystalline ceramic material, NaCl. As we know, NaCl is generally crystalline, it is ceramic in nature. Okay, and NaCl given, and also atomic weight for Na was given, atomic weight for Cl was given, ionic radius of Na plus ion was given, chlorine ion radius was also given. So what we need to do is, we need to calculate the theoretical density. For that, first we'll know what is the theoretical density here. Theoretical density, it is generally denoted by rho th, rho theoretical, and it is nothing but the average number of atoms in an unit cell into the atomic weight of all the constituent present in the unit cell upon the volume of the unit cell. Nothing but density is nothing but mass upon volume. The atomic weight is nothing but mass upon the volume. Generally atomic weighting will be in the gram per mole. Since it is having per mole, we will just divide it by Avogadro's number, nothing but Na. This is our definition. Density is nothing but mass upon volume. Here also we did the same. Atomic weight upon this. Here weight doesn't mean that it is having some weight generally. It is a mass actually. Okay. On a whole it is said as weight, atomic weight. And NaW upon volume of unit cell into Na. So first of all, for this we need to know what type of crystal this NaCl is. Okay, for that here we'll observe. Here we'll see what type of crystal the NaCl is. This is our NaCl crystal. Okay, here if you can observe these blue atoms at the corners, and we will not study. This is an FCC structure, FCC crystal system, FCD crystal structure it is. Okay, so at the corners we'll be having the Cl minus atoms, Cl ions, and at the edge centers we'll be having NaCl, and at the face center we'll be having our chlorine atoms. At the face centers we are having our chlorine atoms, and also at the center we'll be having Na plus. So for this we need to calculate what is the number of atoms. First of all, if you are taking suppose one single plane, we need to know how many number of atoms everything are present. So initially we'll just close this. Right, we will take we'll draw our diagram to analyze. So we have taken a plane here. Right, we are taking our plane here, and generally we'll here we'll represent our chlorine atoms with say suppose we are representing with blue color. So at this point we are having one chlorine atom, nothing but at this corner. At this corner we are having one chlorine atom. Right, similarly at this corner we are having one more chlorine atom. Similarly at this corner atom we are having one more chlorine atom. And finally at this corner atom we are having one more chlorine atom. Right, and also at the center we are having one more chlorine atom. Since it is an face centered structure, we are having one more chlorine atom at the center, and it will be generally touching all the four atoms. Face centered, just for diagram purpose you imagine here. So it is like touching. Right, and there will be the sodium atoms. There will be the sodium atoms at the edge centers. Here we are having our sodium atoms at the edge centers in this way. Let it be some don't mind me here in the difference in sizes of atoms. I'm drawing a generalized diagram just to make an analysis how we'll be taking the how we will be taking our all the parameters here. In that previous diagram we have shown you a color picture there we can't understand everything clearly. This is your final representation. These blue atoms are the chlorine atoms, and these were the sodium atoms. All the red ones are the sodium atoms. This is our NaCl crystal structure when we are seeing from front plane, one of the plane. So we need to calculate all the parameters for this. Initially we will calculate what is the unit cell, volume of the unit cell. For the volume of unit cell, it is nothing but since we are using a cubic system here, volume of unit cell for the cubic system is A cube. So we need to know what is A here. So if you can observe A, this is the radius of chlorine atom, and here it is a 2 times radius of sodium atom, and again here it is the radius of chlorine atom. So this comes out to be 2 times of radius of chlorine atom plus 2 times of radius of sodium atom. Okay, that is our A value. And here from here directly we can write the unit cell volume. I am representing here the volume of the unit cell is 2 into radius of chlorine plus 2 into radius of sodium whole to the power cube. This is the volume of the unit cell. Let it be some Vc. Right, volume of the unit cell was known, and still what parameters we need to calculate? Volume of the unit cell was known, and Avogadro's number we know it is 6.023 into 10 power 23. And now we need to know the atomic weights. So for that, to calculate atomic weights, we need to know how many atoms are present in the unit cell, how many atoms of sodium are present and how many atoms of chlorine are present. Generally for NaCl and FCC structure, the average number of atoms is 4. So 4, how will be getting 4? We'll be having 6 corners. Sorry, we'll be having 8 corners, right? So 8 into the contribution is 1/4. Understand? 8 into the contribution is 1/4. Directly we'll see here how the combination will be. Generally the N average for FCC will be 4, and in that 4, 2 will be shared by chlorine and 2 will be shared by sodium. So if you can observe here, we are seeing in the front plane, right? We are seeing in the front plane. In the front plane itself you can observe all the number of atoms present. This is 1/2 of sodium, and this is 1/2 of sodium, and this is 1/2 of sodium, and this is 1/2 of sodium. All count together we are having 2 sodium atoms, and this is 1/4 of chlorine, this is 1/4 of chlorine, and this is 1/4 of chlorine, this is 1/4 of chlorine. At the body center we are having 1 complete chlorine. So and if we count all them, the chlorine is also two atoms. So therefore for atomic weight, total atomic weight, we can write it as 2 times the atomic weight of chlorine plus the 2 times the atomic weight of sodium, since we are having 2 atoms of chlorine and 2 atoms of sodium. That is all about the atomic weights. And is there any pattern or parameter? And the value of n, that is nothing but the average number of atoms. We are taking only one side, one plane we are taking. Generally there will be 4 times of this. Generally there will be 4 times. So already we have considered here 4 times. 2 into area of 2 into chlorine plus 2 into sodium, already we considered here. Now we will calculate the theoretical density. The rho theoretical is equal to, here no need to take the small n again here, because we have already taken in the 2 into chlorine plus 2 into this sodium, 2 into chlorine plus 2 into sodium. But we need to multiply it by 2, because whatever we are seeing here in this diagram, it is the front face. So the cube will be looking to the front face, and there is also a back face. In the back face also we will have the same arrangement, right? So there are actually 4 corners. Here we are in the front plane, we are seeing 4 corners. Similarly, when we are seeing on the top, there will be 4 corners. Similarly, when we are seeing from the back, there will be 4 corners. In that way, there will be a total of 2 into 2 of chlorine, nothing but 4 chlorine and 4 sodium atoms. That is the N average of atoms. So 2 into 2 is nothing but 2 times of, since one side we are seeing, if you can observe it, 3-dimensional. Okay, I'll show you the 3-dimensional image here. And here is our 3-dimensional representation. I've taken an image.
So if you can observe here, we are seeing only on the one face. For seeing on one face, we are observing this. The same way in this side. See, this is the 1/4 part. This is the 1/4 part. Sorry, that is the half part. And similarly on the back side will be 1/4 and 1/4. In that manner, we'll be having a set of 4 chlorine atoms and 4 sodium atoms. Just to show you, this is only one side we are observing in the diagram, right? That is only one side we are observing for the diagram. So it is 2 times of 2 into atomic weight of chlorine plus 2 into atomic weight of sodium, right, upon the mass was down. Next to the right, the volume is nothing but 2 into radius of chlorine plus 2 into radius of sodium, and to that whole cube, since it is a volume, into the Avogadro number is 6.023 into 10 power 23. Okay, in the question the atomic weight of chlorine was given, atomic weight of sodium was given, ionic radius of chlorine was given, ionic radius of sodium was given. From that, finally we will calculate the theoretical density, and that comes out to be 2.14 gram per centimeter cube. You can practice 1 or 2 questions on this theoretical density calculations. These are the possible questions, possible numerical questions on the GATE from the material science. We have discussed almost in-depth level of this possible questions in material science. Generally, material science is a completely theoretical subject. So by theoretically you should be very strong in material science, and conceptually you should be strong to solve these type of questions. And generally these phase diagram questions will be very interesting. Once you understand the concept, then so you can just solve it in less than a minute. The question can be solved in less than a minute by just drawing the Levert diagram. Okay, and we are making a concept series. In that concept series we will also take phase diagrams in these solid solutions. That will be very helpful. Thanks for watching.